So the Senate Judiciary Committee has just wrapped up its first 2 days of hearings, three, and we are moving to the third day tomorrow, which is the panel of witnesses and the American Bar Association report. I would just say this, and I'll turn it over to my colleagues to say a few words. What an amazing display of grace and dignity and strength that we saw from Judge Jackson. I mean, first it's an ordeal, as I mentioned, to go 2 straight days with that kind of questioning in any circumstance. But then to face 4 or 5 on the Republican side who were just vicious in their attacks on her, vicious. There was a promise that they were going to treat her with respect. Obviously, 4 or 5 of those my colleagues didn't get the memo. And what they did to her and tried to do to her, I really thought we were beyond that in the Senate Judiciary Committee. She handled it professionally and did it with great grace and determination to make her case to the American people. I think the American people believe she's the right person for the job. I do. She has the background in terms of her experience and education. She has been faced with judicial challenges successfully throughout her career, and I think the president knows he made the right choice for the job. She's going to make history, and for some who are opposing her, it's a bitter pill to accept this kind of a change in America, but it's been long overdue, and I just want to commend her, especially her family, who stood by her through this whole ordeal with the committee, sat in the room and listened to the terrible things they had to say about her. We're going to work hard to make sure that she is approved. We hope we have bipartisan support, which is the most common question I receive from the press. But I haven't gotten any single senator on the other side who's told me they're going to vote for her yet. I wanted to wait until the hearings were completed. Let me turn it over in order of seniority. Pat, I think you'd be first.
You know, this is my 48th year in the Senate. I've been on the Judiciary Committee most of that time. I've been there with many chairs of both parties. I had the privilege of being chair myself for a number of years. I can say honestly, as I said to some of you downstairs, outside the presence of Senator Durbin, nobody has handled a hearing as contentious and as important as this, as well as Senator Durbin has in this hearing. He's done it with a grace, competence, and authority that nobody in my years here could have done. Now, having said that, I look at this remarkable woman. I believe in the Senate, I believe in the Supreme Court, I believe both the Senate and the Supreme Court need improvement. She can do that. We can do that. But when I hear one of my Republican colleagues talk about how terrible it was to have the president say he's going to name a black woman to the Supreme Court, because what does that say to all these qualified white men? I thought when I first came here that that era of Jim Crow and all was over, and I was amazed to hear it here. She is an inspiration to all of us, to our families, those of us who have daughters. And granddaughters, both white and black. And to see what this highly qualified, remarkable woman had to face is a shame on those who try to declare themselves as senators. It's beneath this body. It's beneath the U.S. Supreme Court. And it is beneath our great country. She will be confirmed. She'll be a star in the Supreme Court. And I, for one, will proudly cast my vote for her.
I will second the remarks of our chairman and chairman emeritus, and would also like to add a note of thanks and appreciation to Senator Booker, who gave us in the room an epic Senate moment and also a moral reset after some truly poisonous, cynical behavior that trolled through the absolute bottom of what the Senate has done in dark times past. So let's hope that that was the low point and we move back from that low point. And in the face of that, and particularly in comparison to the behavior of some other nominees, what an example Judge Jackson set of temperament, patience, courtesy, and dignity.
I'm going to channel my Michelle Obama just to say, when they went low, she went high. And in a very ironic way, I think they're shameful, really disgraceful, interrupting, and trying to shut her down, elevated her and made her all the more dignified and even majestic. You know, this proceeding was historic, but at the same time, the nomination of a black woman was long overdue, and so this nomination takes a giant leap into the present. This is what America looks like. She will make the court look more like America, hopefully think more like America, and heal some of the divisions within the court, but also stop the court's careening over an ideological precipice that is literally destroying trust and credibility. And as I said, you know, the Supreme Court has no armies, it has no police force, all it has is its credibility and confidence of the American people, and it's on the cusp of losing it. I hope she can restore it. This nomination is really a magnificent step.
We knew from the very beginning that this is a person who was so extremely well qualified for this position, but really as the hours wore on and I saw with what dignity she kept responding and answering to the best that she could, the same questions, literally hour after hour after hour. And over that course of time, what began to sink in even more for me as a woman, as a minority woman, is to recognize how important Judge Jackson is going to be on this court. And when she shared with us all of the communications that she's gotten from girls and women and others from throughout the country, saying you are going to be really the star that we can look up to. Not as someone that is grander or better, but really to see someone who looks like us on that court means everything. And it really sank in, especially with my friend Corey. There was not a dry eye in the House, including I was watching the nominee. And it was just one of the most touching things, but it just reflected how important this person is going to be on the court. And she is literally a uniter, not a divider. And for the first time, I actually felt hopeful for our Supreme Court because she's going to be there.
We've got questions, I'm sure, and I'm going to do what I didn't do the entire last 3 days, which the chairman asked me to do. I'm going to yield my time.
Persevere.
That's what she said. That was a great story.
I just want to thank and recognize Chairman Durbin for your extraordinary leadership throughout this process, in the last couple of days in particular. You know, as I noted when the nominee came to my office for our first meeting, I take my and our constitutional responsibility to advise and consent extraordinarily seriously. I engaged with the nominee in substantive discussions related to the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment. I thought that she answered with extraordinary depth, reflecting her judicial experience, her extraordinary intelligence. She handled the attacks, many of which were cruel and unfair, with strength and poise and grace. Thank you.
Questions? Jill?
Senator Durbin, can you just wrap up the issue about Republicans requesting the pretrial sentencing reports? And then just also, if I may, what happens if the committee deadlocks on this nomination? Will you make the goal of April 8th?
A tie vote doesn't stop us. It slows us down on the floor for a few hours, but it doesn't stop us. We hope that we prevail, but that's the situation. In terms of the pre-sentencing reports, I made my position clear. I hope my friends here back me up. The notion of making those pre-sentence reports available for this political environment and be potentially available for public consumption is reprehensible and dangerous. These reports contain sensitive information about innocent third parties and victims and children, for God's sake. Why the Republicans and Ted Cruz insist on pouring through these now to try to build their specious case against her, I don't know. I'm going to fight it every step of the way, and I'm counting on victims' rights groups to be with me in this process.
Senator, how do you respond to Republicans saying they understand your concern, but they're okay with redacting it or just having a private?
I'm sorry.
You can't do that.
You can't do it. You end up with, let me turn it over to former prosecutors, and I'm not one. But this information,
You've never seen a prosecutor take a swing at it.
I prosecuted thousands of cases. When I was a prosecutor, I was picked as one of the 3 outstanding prosecutors in the country. I don't say that to brag, but because I knew what I was doing. I was vice president of the National District Attorneys Association. I could say with unanimity, no prosecutor I knew would want these to be released. I'm trying to think of a word that begins with B, baloney.
On a just sort of factual point as well, because I think all of us who have been in this position share Senator Leahy's umbrage that this would be even suggested. But let's remember that the probation office isn't part of the executive branch of government, and so the White House can't command them to release it. It's not something that they have. It's not part of the legislative branch of government. It's part of the judicial branch of government. And they do these with the understanding on the part of all parties that this will be kept private. And the day that pre-sentence reports become public for even one judge is the day that the entire probation department has to be cautious from there on about the kind of cooperation that they will get from people who divulge extraordinarily intimate things. Mothers about their children, children about their parents, siblings about each other, victims about their harms, extraordinarily intimate stuff. And if we, in order to pursue this cynical and poisonous attack, damage the institution of the probation pre-sentence report that every sentencing judge relies on, we should actually really be ashamed.
Yeah, you know, let me just, most of you have never seen one of these reports, but the probation officer is assigned to do these reports right after the conviction. Probation officer goes out and interviews moms and dads, potentially criminally liable relatives, and everyone involved in that person's life, not just in the crime, but in potential mitigating circumstances and potential other crimes, because they want to know, has this person done bad stuff that the judge would want to know about? This is potentially dynamite. And they do it, as Sheldon said so well, on the promise of confidentiality. Nobody but the judge, no one but the judge is ever going to see this thing. And in fact, the judge will clear out of his chambers, out of his office, everyone when that probation officer comes to report to him. And potentially the probation officer is in danger because a lot of these defendants may be out of prison and may want to know who put him away. And it can be the probation officer. So this is not just, you know, oh, it's confidential, there's some family secrets there. It is explosive. And Dick said it so well. Victims advocates ought to be really appalled and astonished that a lawyer who really should know better would be suggesting that it happened.
We gotta vote on it.
Senator, I want to ask you, if you do not get these documents that Republicans are requesting, do you have any concerns that Republicans will just boycott this committee vote altogether? And what does, have you gotten any assurances from Grassley that won't be?
Of course, it's a danger, and Senate Judiciary Committee rules give the minority in this circumstance control over whether there is actually a hearing under the rules, whether one can be held, where there's a vote on nomination. So yes, it's an important decision on the Republican part. But I've been speaking to some of the Republican senators who, once they reflected on this letter, have second thoughts about it. They were misled initially that we had lots of documentation we were holding back from them. We had one sheet of paper, which we shared with them almost immediately. So yes, I'm concerned about it, but I'm hoping that enough Republican senators on the committee will accept their responsibility and join us in protecting this confidential information.
Is there any way you would agree to it all, to an adjournment at all, to get more information? Or is
For
that-
what?
For an adjournment. They're asking for an adjournment. They're trying to turn this into, frankly, like Kavanaugh or something like that. Is there
It's
no
the
way-
same problem. Let me tell you what, did you listen to the judge as she described some of the parents of these victims in these 6 crimes? I mean, the thought that I'm sitting at home and think maybe this chapter of my life is behind me and my little girl or little boy doesn't have to worry anymore, and then lo and behold, wait a minute, wasn't that our judge? Does that mean the report with the information we gave them is now going to why in the world would we do that? It's totally unnecessary. It's never been requested. They had the right to request this information from the start. They wouldn't have gotten anywhere, I don't believe, but they didn't. It's piling on with this vicious attack on her. It makes no sense. We know how they're going to vote.
And their main point is she didn't comply with the guidelines. This has nothing to do with the guidelines.
We got 1 minute left on the vote. Yes.
Can I just ask you, Mr. Chairman, am I right that the vote would probably, in the committee would probably be Monday the 4th, if you're having a meeting on?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So it's a holdover. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.